Hey guys, welcome back to markdillon.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to please click subscribe and sign up to my channel. I would really appreciate it. So on to tonight's question, and just in the email headline, I could tell it was going to be a pretty serious one. And he titled it "Forgiving Parents," forgiving the parents. He says, "Hi Mark, I haven't spoken to my parents for years. I was raised in a Christian family and I can't quite get over the hurt of being thought of as less of a person for being gay. What's most difficult is the feeling of humiliation, knowing my parents think my loving of men is perverse. I know it is an essential part of who I am, spiritually and physically. I would very much like to resolve my problems with my family, but I can't submit to the humiliation of being thought of as weird or aberrant, especially in the eyes of my parents. I know my parents won't come around to my point of view. They are both entrenched in Christian doctrine. For this reason, I feel sorry for them. But on the other hand, I feel equally repulsed and ashamed." All right, Dan, that is a heavy email. And to be honest with you, I really don't have a great answer for you because a lot of it is situational. And all I can do is tell you how I would likely handle that being in the same situation. So I would have to determine a few criteria for how I would proceed. And I think the three criteria would be how bad was I emotionally hurt from my previous interaction with them? Uh, how likely would it be that I would continue to be emotionally hurt going forward? And three, what's the likelihood that my parents' views would continue to evolve? Not overnight, not that they would all of a sudden have a huge change of heart and all of this stuff within the instant that I called them. But do I think that there is room for some emotional growth on their part, and to grow in terms of their acceptance of who I am? And those are the things you have to ask yourself. I think first and foremost, we all have a duty to ourselves, above anything else, to protect the sanctity of our own integrity and happiness. That is incredibly important. I don't care if it's siblings, I don't care if it's friends, I don't care if it's parents. If someone is truly causing you emotional harm, physical harm, psychological harm, you have to remove yourself from that situation. Now, I think sometimes people do that prematurely. Um, if you think about just what you said, you hadn't talked to your parents in years. Um, that is a huge consequence of feeling hurt by them. So I think you really have to ask yourself, have I been truly emotionally wounded by this, or am I offended? And there is a difference, and some people respond differently to those kind of things. Sometimes it doesn't hurt everybody to the same emotional depth as it does somebody else. But we all get angry, and I think simply just being angry and feeling insulted, those are temporary feelings, and I think we shouldn't make long-lasting decisions based on that. But if you're truly being emotionally hurt by this, then you do have to consider not talking to them as an option. So you have to ask yourself, which one is it? Do you feel slighted and offended, or are you genuinely being hurt? Um, and there's a big difference, because when we feel slighted and offended, not talking to someone almost seems like a punishment to them. If we're truly emotionally hurt, not talking to them is a defense mechanism. So they're two totally different things. And I wouldn't use not talking to your parents as a form of punishment just because you kind of don't agree with them with their religious views. And which, by the way, I don't either. I think that it's, you know what, I just can't go into the whole religious thing right now. I did a YouTube blog about it maybe a month ago. I just don't have the energy to go into it right now because it drives me crazy. If you think about the amount of harm that religion has caused in the world, and it's done a tremendous amount of good, but it's also done a tremendous amount of harm. AKA, it's not because of some divine influence. Religion simply mirrors humanity. It has all the things that are wonderful about humanity in it, and it has all the things that are absolutely terrible in humanity. You can find reasons for every horrible thing in the world justified in religion, other than omniscience. That's the one sin that is just, you know, above all others, interestingly enough. If you don't believe, that's the worst sin of all. But you can find justifications for slavery, you can find justifications for rape, you can find justifications for murder, you can find justifications for anything, for war, for anything, any horrible action in the world, you can find a justification for in just about any of the, well, in any of the three major religious books. And it's absolutely insane to me that parents would basically disown a child over something that is so obviously flawed and so obviously dated. And so, you know, it's kind of like when you use the example of slavery. And in the Old South, a lot of slave owners and a lot of the Southerners would say that slavery was okay because it was just the taking of slaves was justified in the Bible. And they made this argument. Christians throughout the South made this argument. Nowadays, when you cite that example, Christians will say, those weren't real Christians. They were perverting Christianity. To them, I say, 50 years from now, when Christians are discriminating against some other group, and someone says, hey, do you remember when you guys were discriminating against the gays? The Christians will say, oh, those weren't real Christians discriminating against the gays. They were perverting it. We accept gays now, but we don't like this group of people. Dan, I have found myself in the middle of another rant, and I've gotten away from your question. I can't remember exactly where I left off. But I would say, first of all, protect your own emotional well-being, but don't be so quick to write your parents off completely. You may want to have some limited interaction with them and kind of gauge how far that goes by the way they respond to you. If you start to feel hurt or wounded, pull back a little bit. But I'm inclined to say that unless they're just really, really discriminatory towards you, and they're saying hurtful things, I would give them a chance. You have two parents. I lost my mother when I was 9 years old. I've lost both sets of grandparents. There's very few relationships that will provide you with the comfort of having your parents in your life, regardless of how bumpy the road is. So, again, unless you really feel the only way to protect your emotional well-being is to stay away from them, I would give them some opportunity to have a relationship with you, and just base the extent of that relationship on their attitude towards you. And the more welcoming they are, the closer you can continue to move towards them. If there continues to be these issues, you have to pull back a little bit. But I don't know that I can, in good conscience, tell you that it's wise never to talk to your parents again. Life is entirely too short and too unpredictable. So I think for your own good, you probably would feel terrible if something had happened to your parents and you didn't get the chance to say certain things to them. So for your own good, I would try to give this relationship a second chance. I hope this helps you. And I'm sorry I got off on my little... Guys, this is a warning to you. Don't reference religion in your questions to me, because it sends me off on a tirade. But anyway, Dan, thank you for your questions. Guys, thanks for tuning in to markdillon.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, please click the subscribe button. You'll have a great night.